no insects around them. The wounds seemed quite fresh. There was still red blood. And it's the only time I've ever really felt something like that, where it's like, there's something not right, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know if I'll ever know what it is. My name is Jeffrey Howard. I'm currently working as a freelance photographer, and I live in Sambro, Nova Scotia, which is a province in Canada. There was quite a big storm that day, and then the next day we had seen something washed up on the coastline in front of our house. Wasn't too sure what it was. We were looking at it with binoculars at first, kind of just like, oh, what's that? It looked like a seal, and it was like, oh, there's a seal washed up. Got a little curious, wanted to go check it out, and was surprised to find a headless seal. And at first it was kind of like, oh, that's sad. It's the circle of life. It's not like anything to be too surprised about. And then I look over and there's a tidal pool, and there's another seal floating in the tidal pool, and I was like, oh, this is pretty bizarre. From there I see some intestines spread out across a few rocks, which leads to another seal, and it was 10 minutes of kind of shock of realizing, oh, this is a lot more than just a single animal that died naturally and washed up. There's clearly something that led to this event. A few of them had the skulls sitting quite nearby, which was another thing that kind of made me raise an eyebrow. For the most part, it was just intact seals with no heads. When you find dead animals, you kind of expect that there's going to be other animals taking advantage of the fact that there's free food, but there was nothing really going on with them. The community I'm from, Sambro, it's a very strong fishing community, so a lot of the people I shared the video with are fishermen. And initially a lot of them were speculating that it could have been fishermen who had been shooting the heads off the seals because the seals had been eating all the fish. But then when more and more people started talking about, like, oh, I have 13 on my property, oh, I saw 10 on this walk and X amount over here and whatever, the fishermen kind of pedaled that back. Had a few people speculating about sharks, but that doesn't also really make much sense. There's great white sharks, which are in the area but not heavily prevalent. And then there's Greenland sharks, which are also in the area, not very heavily prevalent. Those are more towards Greenland, given the name. And like, it's definitely physically possible that a shark would bite the head off of a seal, but a shark isn't just gonna bite the head off of a seal and then let it float to land. It's gonna take advantage of the fact that it just killed the seal. It's gonna eat it. It was never my initial instinct to think that it was aliens that did this, but when there's something so bizarre and so inexplicable that happens, you have to start looking for the bizarre and inexplicable potential causes for what might have led to it. For all I know, seal brains have a special chemical in them that aliens like to use to get high or something like that. I was given the lovely job of using a gaff stick, which is what fishermen use to like pull traps out of the water, so it's a stick with a hook on the end. And I got to drag all of the headless seals about 300 feet up our yard to our driveway, where they were then taken away. But that was quite a long afternoon. That was not very pleasant. It's the same people who deal with roadkill who took the seals away from our house. They said normally they wouldn't deal with marine animals, but since this was such a anomalous event, they would do it this one time. A lot of the families have been here for multiple generations. One of my best friends I grew up with, he's a fisherman now. His dad was a fisherman, his grandfather was a fisherman, and nobody had ever seen anything like this, not even close to anything like this in the community before. And these are people who have had their families living here for more than 100 years. My dog had been really focused on sniffing the whole hill where I had dragged the seals up just a few days prior for quite a few months before the rain finally washed away the odor. Because I think of the pandemic and because of how much was going on at that time, it really did blow over quicker than I expected. Since it happened so close to me compared to a lot of the people in the community, it's definitely something that has stuck with me, like constantly questioning, is this real?